everyone, this is Marika and welcome back to another session of Communication in Education Technology. In our previous session, we have discussed about what is educational media, what are the different purposes, how it is used, and what are the importance of educational media. In this session today, we are going to discuss about characteristics of a good audiovisual media. But before we move on and discuss about the characteristics, let us all quickly recall what is educational media and what are the purposes of educational media. So as we have discussed yesterday, we have seen that people everywhere like to study or read through certain audiovisual aids. When text travels through various pictures and graphics, the retention of an individual also is increased. So educational media are also called as AV aids or can also be termed as learning resources. What are educational media? Educational medias are those devices, those objects that are used by the teacher in order to help the teacher or assist the teacher clarify the concept and make the concept more concrete. So educational media can also be called as learning resources, AV aids, AV materials, instructional or learning materials. We have also discussed about few purposes of an educational media or an AV aid, which is to enhance the learning, to foster the knowledge of the individual, to help the individual learn about a concept in much better and realistic way. It will help the audience to not just listen to what is being taught, but also see the actual concept or the procedure being taught. It quickens the phase of learning as well as it will elicit the interest and motivate the students to learn better. So these were the various purposes of educational media. Let us also quickly recall the importance of educational media. As discussed from the introduction, we have seen that the importance of educational media are in various aspects of an individual. The first one is memory retention. When any context or any message is given to the audience with the help of audiovisual aids, it is 6 times more than what is alone done by spoken words. We have also seen that people will have increased attention span as the brain remains entertained while audiovisual medias are used. Uses of different audiovisual media for different topics will also help to categorize the information or the message into smaller chunk of information which is easily understandable by the audience. So it will also help to organize the communication. And lastly, we have also seen it will help in comprehension of the particular topic. Now that we know what is educational media, what are the various purposes and importance, let us see what are the characteristics of an educational media. So there are various characteristics an educational media or an AV aid has to meet before it is considered as an effective or a good AV aid. So the first characteristic is meaningful and purposeful. An audio-visual aid can only be considered effective one or a good one if it is meaningful and purposeful for the particular teaching learning session. So as we have seen yesterday, every audiovisual aid will not be suitable for every different topic. So as discussed, every different topic demands for different kind of audiovisual aids. Same type of audiovisual aids cannot be used for all the different types of topic, right? So the teacher must know for which topic what kind of AV aids are to be used, and an AV aid can only be considered a meaningful or an effective AV aid if it is meaningful and purposeful for the particular topic that is being dealt for the session. The next characteristic is to motivate the learners. So as we have seen in the purpose itself, an audiovisual aid is used in a teaching learning process to elicit the interest of the student and to motivate the learners to learn better. We have also seen that some of the individuals are more often visual learners than auditory learners. So using an AV aid for a particular session will obviously motivate the students, motivate the learners to learn better as well as learn quickly. Even though if an AV8 has many appealing characteristics like being colorful or being very attractive, if it is not able to motivate the learners, it cannot be considered as an effective AV8. So until and unless an AV8 actually motivates the learner to learn better, learn quickly and swiftly, it cannot be considered as a good AV8. The next characteristic is simple and cheap. One of the most essential characteristics of any AV8 is its simplicity and it being cost effective. We know that AV8s are used in different sessions and it is used throughout the teaching learning process. So of course the AV8 has to be cost effective in order to make sure that it can be used by the teacher for every different session of their teaching. Also, it has to be very simple so that the learners will be able to understand what information it has to convey. Only if an AV8 is cost effective, then it can be used. It is practical to use the AV8 and the acceptability of the particular AV8 will also be high as the AV8s are to be used for each and every session of the teaching learning process. The next one is appropriate size. So we all are aware about this. For every different kind of AV8s, we have appropriate size that is given and it must be followed. It must not be very large and it must not also be very small. Now, if the AV8 is very large, it will create problems in handling. It will be difficult to handle the AV8. If very large AV8s are made, people will not be able to handle the AV8s properly. Whereas if very small AV8s are made, then the AV8 may not be able to trigger the sense of learning within the learners. So while preparing an AV8, we must make sure that the AV8s are of appropriate size. It must not be very large as well as not very small. If very large AV8s are made, then there will be problems in handling the AV8. While if small AV8s are used, then it might not trigger that sense of learning in the learners. Next one is up to date. Now we all know that science and technology is one such field which is continuously upgrading and progressing. And when we look at the field of educational media, it has also progressed a lot in last few years. Therefore, educationalists must make sure that the AV8s are continuously upgraded according to the upgradation and progress that we see in other fields and in science and technology. So we must make sure that the AV8s that we use are updated and not outdated. The next characteristic of an AV8 is portable. Now, what is the meaning of the term portable? A good audiovisual aid must be portable. So the term portable means something that is easy to carry, something that is easy to move from one place to another. So an AV8 must be portable. It must not be very large that the people will not be able to take it from one place to another. It must be portable in order to make sure that it is easily moved from one place to another whenever it is required. The next characteristic is customized to the type of educational material. Now, as we said, every tool or every AV8 will not fit all the educational material to be delivered, all the sessions to be taught, right? Every different type of topic demands for different kind of AV8s. Therefore, AV8s must be customizable to the different types of learning or educational material according to the particular class. Now here it is the role of the teacher to be able to understand what kind of AV8 is suitable for the particular class, what can be used and what will give the best learning outcome must be identified by the teacher before the teacher plans the class. So these are the various characteristics of educational media. It must be customizable to the educational material or to the session that is being dealt by the teacher. It must be updated according to the progress that is seen in science and technology and other fields around. It must be simple, it must be cost effective, it must be meaningful and purposeful, and it must motivate the learners. I hope you've understood what are the characteristics of a good and effective AV8. Let us now see the principles to be followed for preparing an effective AV8. Now, AV aids function as an integral part of the education program. We all know without the use of AV aids, it is not easy to deliver any kind of class. So, AV aids are very important and is an integral part of the education program. Now, let us discuss principles one by one. The first principle is principle of selection. Again, now this principle says that the selection of the AV to be used for the particular session must be demanded by the topic. So what topic is being delivered by the teacher in the particular session, the teacher has to choose the AV according to the particular topic, and what kind of AV does the particular topic actually demands for. So according to the concept that is being taught to the learners, according to the content, AV must be selected. Now here in the principle of selection, we must also see the basic characteristics of the learner. The basic characteristics may include age, class, mental ability of the students and interest of the students. This also must be considered before we select the AV. And finally, before selecting any kind of AV aid, the teacher who is using the AV aid must have a thorough knowledge about the AV aid and how to use the AV aid effectively in order to gain the maximum output from the learners. So in the principle of selection, basic characteristics of learners also must be looked after, like the mental ability of the learners, the age of the learner, the class, and the interest of the learners. AV must be selected according to the content being delivered by the teacher, and the teacher must have the knowledge and ability to use the AV that are being selected. The next principle is principle of preparation. To promote the efficient use of audiovisual aid, sound preparation is required in reference to the training of the teachers, the money that is required for the preparation of the AV and also the maintenance of AV. So in order to make sure that the AV are used effectively, we must know about what is the amount for preparation of the particular AV. How can the particular AV be maintained? Whether the teachers are trained well in order to use the AV. Now, in principle of preparation, we must see that the AV that are used by the teacher must be locally available, which is self-made by the teacher, which is cost-effective, and teacher and student friendly AV. So while we prepare the AV, all of these characteristics of the AV must be kept in mind. This principle must be followed. Next one is principle of physical control. So this principle says that in order to make sure that the AV is used effectively and efficiently, there are various physical factors that have to be looked after. For example, a place for the storage of AV, proper cleanliness of the particular area, or appropriate environmental temperature. So the physical environment in which the AV is kept, a place where it is stored, the temperature where those AV are stored. Now, why is it required to have a proper physical control for the AV? Because this will promote the durability of the AV. It will also promote hassle-free uses of those AV by the teachers, and it will also promote the working or functioning of the AV. The next one is principle for proper presentation. So this means here the teacher or those who are using the AV must make sure that those AV are in good and proper working condition. So the teacher must know how to operate the AV how are AV used appropriately, right? In order to make sure that while the teacher actually uses the AV there are no discomfort or there's no inconvenience caused for the teacher as well as for the learners. Now here, the AV that is used by the teacher must be presented in such a manner that grabs the attention of the students. The students must be able to see the AV with comfort, as well as it must elicit the interest of the students so that it can enhance the learning process. The next principle is principle of response. The teacher must make sure that the students will respond to the stimuli that is being provided by the AV. Now, why is it required for the students to give response to the stimuli provided by the AV? It is because the teacher will then get to know about the effectiveness of the AV being used in the particular session. The teacher will get to have an idea about if this AV aid which is being used is helping the student to learn better or not. Now, if there's absence of students' response towards the stimuli of the AV aids, the teacher will not be able to evaluate the effectiveness of the teaching aid in the achievement of educational objectives. Next one, we have principle of evaluation. Now, evaluation is of course the most important phase in any given process, right? So here through evaluation, the teacher will get to know the effectiveness of the particular teaching aid that is being used. So through proper evaluation, teacher will get to know about the effectiveness of the teaching aid that is being used. Now, when there is a proper evaluation of the AV aids being used, when we get the feedback from the students about the AV aid being used, whether the AV aid was helpful or not, or how helpful the AV aid was, the teacher can also modify the AV aids that she can use in her further classes in order to enhance the learning. Evaluation of audiovisual aid must be done in a regular basis so that it will give an idea about how effective a particular AV aid is. If there are any problems identified, those problems can be solved, right? If any AV aids that are being used by the teacher are not helpful for the students, those AV aids can be removed and other AV aids can be used. There can be modification of the AV aids used in the teaching learning process. So it should be done on a regular basis so that there will be no disturbance in achieving the educational objectives. These are the major principles to be followed while preparing or using an AV aid for the teaching learning process. There are few miscellaneous principles as well. Let us see what are those principles. The first one is audiovisual media must be used as an integral part of educational program, which means audiovisual aids must be used in order to make sure that the students get the idea more clearly. In an education program, audiovisual aid helps a lot for the student. We have seen the importance, how it helps in retention of memory, expanding the attention span of an individual, as well as how easily individual can comprehend a message when audiovisual medias are used. So keeping all this importance in mind, we must make sure that AV aids are used in educational program as an integral part. Now, educational media must be used as an integral part in the teaching learning process in order to attain the educational objectives. Now, in order to make sure that appropriate audiovisual aids are selected for the teaching learning process, an advisory committee can be set up within the educational institution in order to make sure that they provide guidance on what type of educational media to be used for different kind of classes or for different group of students. And finally, the preparation of AV aids must be according to the size, and it must be in such a way that it will motivate the learners to learn better. These are all the principles that are to be followed while using an AV aid for the teaching learning process. To summarize, today we have seen what is an AV aid. We've also discussed briefly about the purposes of AV aids and in detail about the characteristics and principles of an AV aid. I hope the class was helpful, and I'll see you all in the next session where we will discuss about the different types and sources of educational media. Thank you and have a great day ahead.